Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Nerve Centre Presents Our Space in Place event here in the hallowed halls of the Lyric Theatre. My name's Hugh Odling Smee, and I'm delighted to host today's guests to discuss the past, present and future of integrated education in Northern Ireland. Before I introduce our guests, who have just arrived on stage, can I just do a little bit of housekeeping? We're going to go for about an hour today. There will be an opportunity for questions. They'll bring the house lights up and we'll have a roving mic and all that sort of stuff. So if there's something that occurs to you during our talk, please do keep it in mind. And the other thing is, if you could at least turn your phones to silent, we would be most grateful. So put them on stun for the remainder of our time today. So without further ado, I should introduce our guests who have arrived on stage next to me here. So originally from Hollywood County Down, Jamie Dornan is an award-winning actor, model and musician from Northern Ireland, best known for The Fall, the hit TV show The Tourist, and of course his latest role as Pa in Kenneth Branagh's Belfast. Jamie has in recent times delivered impassioned support for integrated education, and we're delighted to have him here today. Baroness May Blood is an activist who from an early age was involved in the trade union movement as a shop steward for the Transport and General Workers Union, promoting equality for women at work. May was a founding member of the Northern Ireland Women's Coalition, and May is currently the campaign chair for the Integrated Education Fund in Northern Ireland, and was awarded an MBE for her work around integrated education. And finally, last but by no means least, Oliver Jeffers is a visual artist, author, and the lead artist behind Our Place in Space. Oliver's books, from How to Catch a Star in 2004 to There's a Ghost in This House in 2021, Oliver have delighted millions, bringing themes such as the environment, imagination, and the power of creativity into the lives of countless young people. In 2019, NICE announced Oliver as the Integrated Education Patron and Supporter, and Oliver is a proud past pupil of Hazelwood Integrated College. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel. Thank you all very much for today as part of this Our Space. Are you feeling comfortable? Is everyone okay?
Yeah, feeling very comfortable. Thank you, Hugh.
Good. May, I was going to start with you, if I may. So I wanted to ask, we sort of think of integrated education as developed and fully grown almost now. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you, when you were growing up, what was education like in Northern Ireland?
Well, I went to a little school in Sandy Row, and past 11 plus. I wanted to go to Methodist College to be a school teacher, but my mum and dad couldn't afford the uniforms. So I stayed in Sandy Row and wasted the next 4 years of my life. I couldn't wait to get out of school. I hated school. Never could understand why you were there. But
well, you're a great advert for that attitude.
But anyway, once I left school, I went to work in a linen mill. And circumstances for education in those days was, well, if you were rich, you could afford a good education. If you were poor, you just took what was given to you. Yeah.
And so it was the class divide that was...
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And in terms of division, in terms of religious makeup, did you feel that when you were in school?
No, I was born into a mixed area, fortunately, in Belfast. Right. I was born in just off the Roden Street there. And our next door neighbours were Catholic, across the street were Catholic. And in fact, when the trouble started, that's how we can be burned out. My father went out to defend our Catholic neighbours and they burned us out instead, right, Protestants. So it was all about, then it was all about who could do the best over the other, you know, and it was a difficult
and I suppose those kind of experiences in terms of integrated education, you know, is that why integrated education is important to you?
No, I have to say, when I got the title, when I was elevated to the House of Lords, the first engagement I was asked was to go to Hazelwood to do the prize giving. Now, I'd never been in integrated school. I thought it was for rich people who could afford that kind of thing. I went to Hazelwood and I was blown out of the water. Kids from Sandy Row, North Belfast, all being educated together. There was no question of religion, no question of anything, orange or green or anything like that. We're just getting on. And through that experience, I learned that that's the way forward. Yeah. We have to give our children a good education, but a broad education that they understand the outside world is not all about orange and green.
And just in terms of integrated education, as you've been involved in the IEF, what have been the main obstacles that you've seen to integrated education?
Well, the main obstacles has been the churches.
Right.
The Catholic Church and the Presbyterian Church, and I'm a Presbyterian. It's been really horrendous. I mean, they go into churches and they talk about reconciliation and then they come out and do something different. And I remember some years ago saying to a moderator of the Presbyterian Church about integrated education, he says, I wouldn't set foot in an integrated school. He says, it's handing over a Protestant school. And that's sectarianism.
Yeah.
He didn't recognise it like that. But that's still there. The Catholic Church is very opposed to it. And I understand their reasons for it. But it's the future. It's the future.
And do you think that the churches slowly will come around to that
Yes,
sort of opinion?
I think the churches are slowly beginning to say their parishioners want this.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. They want their parishioners in the churches. And I think that's slowly changing.
Yeah, that kind of shift. Oliver, you were at Hazelwood, and did you feel that same feeling that May got when she went to the prize giving? When you were there?
was that prize giving?
2000.
Okay, no, I had left by that stage. But no, you know, as an 11-year-old I think I actually failed my 11 plus. I asked my dad today, actually, why did you send us to an integrated school? And he says it was partly about that he fundamentally disagreed with the idea of the separation from such a young age, but also it was like he liked the way in which that school was going about teaching the individual, you know, rather than just sort of ramming the curriculum down your throat. But, you know, at 11 years old, it didn't occur to any of us to ask each other, are you a Catholic or a Protestant? I think it was, you know, third or fourth year before we're like, oh, wait a minute, you know, what are you? And, you know, at that stage, it was, you knew somebody. But, you know, back then in school, I think the primary motivation is to get out of doing as much work as possible and have as much fun as possible.
Meet new people.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you went to Methody, and Methody is a mixed school, although not obviously officially integrated.
Yeah.
What was your experience of division in terms of how that, you know, did you feel it? Were you aware of it when you were at Methody?
I would have had very little recognition of division in Methody. I would have at primary school, because I was at Fullerton, which is one of the preps in Methody. And we would have had lots of close links to St Bride's, which was half a mile up the road.
Of course.
And I was talking about it earlier, actually, that first season of Derry Girls, where they go and do these cross-community things. We used to go to the Share Centre in Enniskillen, I think it is, with all the kids from St Bride's. And you had to buddy up with them and, you know, trust them and all, as if they were like another species, you know. Well, it was very, very, very strange. And be pen pals with them. So by the time we got to Methody, if you passed your 11 plus, you went to Methody. We knew a lot of the kids from St Bride's already, because we had pen pals and whatever. So then that was kind of similar to what you're saying. The only reason I would know that they were not Protestant was that they'd gone to St Bride's and we'd had dealings with them before. Yeah. But it wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't a thing at all at Methody. I think when I was there, it was probably a little bit more. Methody had a massive international community, but I remember too, massive Asian population, Indian. So that division never felt real. It certainly wasn't anywhere near the surface. I think it was slightly more Protestant when I'm there. I'm now told it's more Catholic than Protestant Methody. Far like there's close to boarding departments, so not as much international students. But yeah, it wasn't a thing, and I feel like as time goes on, and jumping on what you were saying there, May, about the power and the influence of the church, that's weakening.
Absolutely.
I'm from a generation where I'm an atheist, so I've always struggled to. I don't identify as Protestant because that didn't mean I'm as much Protestant as I am Catholic. It didn't. We went to church, to Presbyterian church, until I was 6, and my grandparents were old enough to not realise that we were going to church anymore. And as soon as my sisters and I got to that age, we never went to church again unless it was for a funeral.
It's like when you, even in primary school and secondary school, when you do religious studies, you're taught about that one religion rather than religion in general and all religions. And
that's what I found weird about Methody, as much as we're saying it was integrated and maybe not officially seen as integrated, but it very much was. And with RE and stuff, it was. I remember always thinking for the Catholic kids must have been like, what's all this?
It is.
We're
it's
all
a lot
thinking,
of that.
what's all this?
It was only when I went to university and started reading up about, well, what is, what's the whole thing about the Muslim religion? What is it with Taoism? What is it with all of these other religions that are taught? And it just struck me that the fundamental teachings of all of them are pretty identical.
Well, I think they learn a lot more comparative religion now in terms of,
Do they? I mean, this is, going back
I think
to the 90s.
so, but I mean, obviously, my experience is Latin College, and Latin College was, it was religion and Christianity was very much part of the kind of the makeup of the school. But I mean, I know certainly during my time in the 80s, just to date me there, the Catholic chaplain took quite a lot of risks personally to be there and to attend and to kind of give that service to people.
Yeah. Was that his choice as an individual, or was that a?
Well, I think so, yeah, and I think they were going against kind of certain instructions essentially, but I think it was that sort of sense that it was a school that represented everyone. And so you needed an element of everything that was in there, and so I think that kind of idea of religion as being, religious studies being representative of things maybe started there, But I think it's a difficult issue in terms of the place of religion and where it sits within the school.
But the interesting thing about that is it was mostly women in the Catholic Church who came,
who did that, yeah.
Sister Anna and that. And then we had a number of retired missionaries, and they came on board because they'd been in another part of the world and seen it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So they come on board, and that was a big movement. I mean, Sister Anna was a power to be.
She was certainly a force of nature, that's for
Absolutely,
sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
She was.
I remember during the Holy Cross dispute, she invited me up. She lived in the house just at the divide. Come up and stay with me, and we'll go out and feed them.
I wouldn't want to fight against them when they're scary.
Well, she was threatening Germans not to, hand over huge amounts of money, as I recall. Yeah.
But they've done a lovely memorial.
That's right, up in the school. Yeah,
beautiful.
Absolutely. I was going to ask about what that diversity gives you, and Oliver, I wanted to ask you specifically about your development as an artist and your kind of attitude towards art and creativity.
If you'd asked me when I was in art college, it was like nothing. I didn't learn anything from that. But it's only taking other people to look at the body of work and my career and recognize these strands that exist. And one of them is duality. And the idea to be able to hold two opposing concepts in your head at the same time. But another one was recognizing that there's almost different iconic and visual languages that both can be negotiated. And being able to talk to different people in different ways, in a way that doesn't make them feel threatened. Yeah. And that a lot of that has come out of my work in recent years, where even just the idea of speaking about something that's controversial, if you go about it in a way which doesn't make the other person feel attacked, you get a very different response. But I think that visual duality, and even there's another talk that's happening later tonight as part of this festival, Stefan Sagmeister, and I was giving him a tour of Belfast and showing him some of the murals, and saying that somebody else had pointed out that even visually there was an influence on my work. There's the sort of the whimsy and folklorishness of the Catholic murals, but also this sort of graphic directness of the loyalist murals that are very, very present in my work.
Yeah, and you were sort of looking back now, that kind of upbringing, that diversity that you saw at school.
Completely.
Because one of the things that people from integrated education talk about is kind of being at ease in other people's backgrounds and kind of being aware of how other people express themselves.
And when I left here to go and live in New York, it was thank God you don't have to remember what answer to give to what question when you're caught in.
Nobody knows what school you went to over there.
Yeah. Okay. And there's my grandmother, my dad's mother, had a chemist shop on the Falls Road, and there was a famous incident that happened in there where some stranger walked in and two lads were following behind and said, "Here, are you a Catholic or a Protestant?" And he says, "I'm a Jew," and that confused them. And so they followed up with, "Are you a Catholic Jew or a Protestant Jew?" So it's in a way, it's not actually about religion at all. It's like many of the people that are caught up in these identities aren't actually that religious. It's sort of a class identity thing. And when we were talking about this event, we were saying that almost integrated education is a string to the bow of this the potential and pre-existing confusion of what it is to be from Northern Ireland, what it is, how you define yourself, and can that happen without the existence of somebody to measure against?
Right. Okay.
I think it'd be great. Well, we were talking about it'd be great to be able to be from this place. And listen, I tried it. I've been away 20 years. I tried telling people I was Northern Irish.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
No.
No.
Do you know what does work?
Doesn't work. Doesn't stop there. They have a million questions.
Yeah. But do you know what?
You know, what do you mean? With Northern Irish, hold on. Does that not mean, well, are you Irish, are you British?
Yeah.
Okay, for push Irish. Oh, but you're from Northern, how can you say Irish? Well, why are you asking me?
Who are you talking to? Because when I started explaining to people, they didn't even know that this island was divided in two.
No.
But I started answering that with going...
People in England don't know that.
Yeah.
There are.
Very, very good point.
I mean,
But
we
you
joke,
saying
there
that,
are.
Oliver, I remember being at a reception and we'd been out looking at different education programs in New York, and when we came back I said to the girl with me, I'm going to go to Sinn Féin's reception, they have better food. And we went up and I was showed down in the middle of this room and sat down beside this woman, and she says, "Me from American, where are you from?" I says, "I'm from Protestant West Belfast."
Get very specific then.
You're a Protestant? Yeah. I said, I wish my mother was alive to see this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And even whenever we lived in New York for years and years, and I didn't feel that comfortable saying that I lived in America, so I'd answer was like, I live in Brooklyn, and the reverse answer was also true. When people say, where are you from? I just say, from Belfast. It's like going back to the old city-state of, which, you know, there's an actual obvious geographical
But you need that fluidity as well. You need to kind of not to take it too seriously, I suppose, in terms of identity as well.
But I have many Protestant friends who came to New York to visit me, and you know they're quite devout in their Protestantism and their unionism, and you know, supporting Northern Ireland over the Republic of Ireland, which has always confused me whenever I was told that I couldn't support Northern Ireland in a football match if they were playing the Republic.
Right.
But whenever they were in New York in a bar and somebody would say, "Where are you from?" they would say, "Ireland." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Now you're from Ireland?" Because they recognise that it had more cultural cachet at that moment.
Well, when in Rome, you know, you have to do as the Romans do. Jamie, I was going to ask, I was at the Belfast premiere where you talked about integrated education, and I wanted to know really why you felt that it was important to speak out about it at the time, and you know, why you think it's important, I think, is the question.
Was that the first time that you had?
I'd been in touch a wee bit with like Paul Kasky and stuff. I'd had sort of loose conversations about it, and then I didn't plan to talk about it that night, but
That's a key effect,
sort of the conversation lent itself towards it, and I thought I'll jump on this here.
You went with it,
and it's a numbers thing for me. It's the less than 7%, whatever the number. It's
less than 7%
of integrated.
of schools are integrated.
Yeah. Now listen, there's a bit of a grey area, but does that include schools like Methody and Inst and stuff that are very integrated, but maybe don't come into the figures. But whatever the number is, it's too low. I'm not saying it should be 100% across the board. We're all in it together. Sure. Well, what about the past? Let's all just move on. That's not
going to happen. Yeah.
One of the most complicated places in the world. It's been 101 years of endless complications, and that will continue beyond everyone in here's lifetime too. It's never going to be perfect, but I don't see anything positive at 4 years old dividing people, dividing 4 years old from their neighbours based on what religion their parents are.
Yeah,
These kids who probably, I'm not saying there's a chance to be religious, but we can all probably agree, whether we like it or not, it's you know, staunch religion is a dying thing. To be divided, anything that deepens division isn't what we need here, you know. And I think we just need to recognise that and just get those numbers to be a bit
Because it was
wider.
interesting you put it in the context of the film that night as well. You know, what the subject matter of the film is division and the birth of the Troubles and all. You can argue, you know, about that representation and things like that, but that was very much what came across when we were all watching that film that night.
Well, it's that idea, and there's a strong message in Ken's film in Belfast. My character says it at the end, if I don't care if she's a vegetarian, antichrist, or Hindu, whatever, like, you know, as long as she's kind and respectful, then that's how we should all be thinking. It just shouldn't matter. It just shouldn't matter what religion you are. And so making it matter from 4 years old, I think, is wrong.
But we have to be aware that that's still very much in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
I mean, Robbie Murth done a thing yesterday about children still being taught orange and green. You know, and that is something we have to be very mindful of. It's still happening in certain areas. Now, we're working hard on that, so we have a lot of good work going on. And one of the things, for instance, with the Shankill, out of the Holy Cross dispute, the budding programme came out, and there's schools now working together across the divide and all, and it's really good. It's really good, but it's still there, and we still have a lot of work to do. You were saying about the numbers of integrated schools. Yes, we're at 70. And we've just launched our new programme to go for 100. But the problem for us is we have to fundraise all private. We get no government funding, so we have to fundraise. So we have to go at the pace that we can fundraise at. We're inundated with schools. We have a number of schools, all have taken the vote. Unfortunately, it takes 2 years for the department to make up its mind whether it's signing a school over or not. I have another 3 coming on in September. So it's looking good for the future.
But it's a slow process also, because of access, and it's, and one of the reasons there's only 7% is because so many people don't have access to an integrated education. They don't have a school in their area that they can send their kids to.
But that's not I think, to lay the blame on the people who want to send their kids to school. I think that's a structural system
logistical situation.
So whenever I became a patron for integrated education, I got a letter through to the studio in Brooklyn, and my assistant at that time was a young African-American woman, and she was looking, integrated education, what does that mean? What does integrated education mean? I was like, right, well, so there's 2 different sorts of white Christians, and this is really embarrassing. And it just at that moment I was like, what? Why are we still here? It just seems so obvious and so simple. And you were talking about that. The parents want it. There is a want for this.
Yeah. But the 2 things we need to change in Northern Ireland is the education system, and we need to change the political system.
So
I think we're still very orange and green, and that's not right in this day and age.
It would be great
if being growing up it was different, but not now.
It would be great if there was just collective amnesia, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the last election saw a kind of the rise. There was a lot of kind of stupid stuff written, but the rise of the other, and the kind of idea that there is a third identity here.
And that's a generational thing, and we're part of that generation.
And there's a lot of people who wouldn't have been comfortable in either camp. So there's this sort of this other identity. Now a huge amount of people identify as Northern Irish. They would say on the census, "I'm Northern Irish. I'm not one or the other. I'm this."
That's now becoming a viable option to say that without the stigma
But the
of the
interesting thing
politics of
was,
the past.
the interesting thing was Ian Paisley Senior always claimed to be an Irishman.
Yeah.
In his book, he claimed to be an Irishman. He never claimed to be a Northern Irish.
There's some Orange Order claim to be Irish.
They claim to be an Irishman.
I mean, maybe that speaks to the identity being fluid as well. But your point about not having a flag,
that new section we're talking about, they don't have a flag. Where they?
Could we just rename this little top right-hand corner of this island in far West Europe, give it a new name, and then come up with a new flag?
I fear that's been tried.
I
worry about that.
Like a sort of Gibraltar type thing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's give it a go, lads.
Do we get duty free though? I mean,
well, that would have to be in the contract.
Yeah, you'd have to get duty free at least. Bottle of vodka and 200 fags and anything.
But you were saying there about the 2 problems. The systemic problems are religion and education, and the problem with I think the systems of education aren't just isolated to here. I think that's the Western world is actually I think the way in which schools go about what is it that we're doing. An awful lot of the time it's you said this earlier, I'm going to steal your line, about filling the bucket rather than lighting the fire. And it's about teaching kids how to pass an exam rather than preparing future contributing members of society. If we were to redo schools, think about them from scratch, what is it that we would teach our kids?
And why would we teach them it?
Like to really redo it, if we're going to have collective amnesia, like what is worth learning and what's not? And I don't know, is this being tried and experimented? It's all well for me to sit up here and pontificate, but I'm not involved in it.
But I think it's really difficult as well if we look about what's happening in terms of subjects like English literature being taken off the curriculum at universities in England. Because they have a really bad success rate in terms of getting jobs out the other end of it.
And you have grammar,
is education about just getting a job?
auto-predict in your phone now. So. What's that? And you have auto-predict in your phone now. Anyway,
well, you don't need to learn how to spell, but there is a sense that certain elements within the national government, the UK government, are sort of thinking along those lines that actually that's just a luxury. You know, art, culture, those kind of things that actually broaden your existence, broaden who you are. You know, and engagement with that.
Yeah, and so my dad was a teacher for years and years and years, and he taught in Fleming Fulton, which I guess technically it's a school for kids with disabilities, which is also integrated because it's a great equalizer, but. He's always said that the two most difficult things a human being learns is how to walk and how to talk, yet in day one of school you're told to sit down and shut up. You only need to teach human beings one thing, and that's how to be curious. So at a TED Talk once I heard somebody say that education is what somebody does to you, but learning is what you do to yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
And that you've got to bring that spark back in, rather than this is homework, this is a chore, this is something I need to do. It's light that fire. Like, I mean, I didn't really read books at all until I went to university, and then the professor at that point said, "Here's 100 classic books. I would like you to have read at least 10 of these by the end of the year." I hadn't read a single one. Yeah. And I'm still working my way down that list, but it's like suddenly wanting to do it rather than being told that you have to do it is a very different thing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, May, obviously, within your trade union experience, the Workers' Education Authority, and the idea of lifelong learning and those kind of ideas. Work, those are very different from school. They're very different from, I mean,
you learn different skills, so you did. Yeah. And when I went into that education, as I had a very pure education, but when I joined the union, they gave me the education I have through those courses. They opened up a different world to me, so they did.
Yeah, and that was that light in the fire, I suppose.
Yeah,
absolutely. May, do you think then that the death of the apprenticeship program, because a third level education isn't for everybody?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm old enough to remember on the Shankill, the apprenticeships was what you wanted. You wanted to get one and move on. And most people in the Shankill, at the beginning of the Troubles, you say in the Shankill, 3 things hit it: unemployment, redevelopment, and the Troubles. And it took the whole apprenticeship and all out. So it did, and the Shankill just became claustrophobic by itself. So it did. But that's changing. That's changing now, so it is. And there's a lot of good work going on.
And maybe it's that kind of seeing all the cultures and diversity and access to other people and not that isolation that you have, that I suppose is the kind of... I was going to ask a quick question just about class, I suppose, in terms of my experience. Obviously, going to Latin College was... I had a middle class English parents, and which are the worst kind. Derry Girls has taught us it's okay to laugh at the English, and so I didn't care about religion. There were mixed marriage, and it was kind of my brothers and sisters and I were Catholic Protestant, so we were really weird. But the thing for me was class. It was about meeting people from outside my class groupings and all that sort of stuff, hanging around with fellas from Twinbrook or meeting people from Ballybean and stuff like that, and actually, doing that sort of thing. Do you think that's the next step in terms of division in Northern Ireland? Do you think that's the...
Well, class is a big thing, of course, in Northern Ireland. We still have... And we're trying to level that up, whether we ever do or not. But one of the things that struck me when I first went into Parliament was that exactly that. How much they knew and I didn't. And it really was a big step for me. And I was saying earlier, I remember as a child in the City Hall, for instance, because we come from working class, we weren't allowed into the City Hall. We had to go in the back gate, pay our gas bill and come straight out again. That's how class was. That's not now.
But class is a global problem, not just.
I agree.
Here, as I just said, that the revolution were between the haves and the have-nots.
But when I went into Parliament first, people said to me, "Oh, I suppose you were treated differently." No. When I went into Westminster, from the day I went in, I was treated as an equal.
Why do you think that was?
I think it's because, first of all, I think they didn't know how to handle me. And secondly,
nobody does.
Secondly, I think I went prepared to work in, to do what I could, to get involved in things that maybe was way above me, but it was get involved in them. And I think they've seen that, and the value of that for me was I made a lot of good friends over in Westminster.
Just before we open up to the audience, I wanted to ask you a question. Sort of this whole project has been about space and perspective and where we sit in the great universe. And I wondered, if you had to imagine integrated education is where it's at now, where do you see it being in 40, 50 years? May, if you...
I see it being the norm.
Okay.
I think, people are moving that way. not only for financial reasons, because we can't afford the education system we have, but we're moving that way. And I think all of a sudden, this last year, Northern Ireland suddenly has grew up. And I think, you know, the next 10, 20 years will be a big, big difference. Now, it'll not be in my lifetime, but at least we have planted the foundations there to start that, and I think that's what will happen.
Well, they say the first person to live to 150 is alive and walking around, so maybe...
It could be you.
I reckon if anyone's going to do it, you're
I reckon you're in.
Jamie, you said something brilliant in that when you were talking at the Belfast premiere. You said something like, we should stop calling it integrated education and just call it education, and everything else should be called segregated education. I think it's
we had that discussion a number of years ago in London. We were wondering, was integrated education the right title? What would you call it? A community school? What would you call it? And it didn't really gel. And you're talking about Methy and I know Victoria and all them, they will not put integrated into their name because it's seen as working class.
So this is a marketing problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was certainly the early days of integrated education. It was seen as kind of like a middle class sort of plaything, I suppose, or something like that. It was very different from my experience of it, you know.
Jamie, are you optimistic about the future of here?
Don't say no, Jamie. Don't crush our hopes.
No, obviously can't say no. Yeah, of course, I am optimistic about it, of course, but
there's a way
the divisions are so deep. I mean, we can't sit up here and pretend that, it's class, it'll all be fine. We'll just get the kids together at a young age, and in 20 years, no one will be talking about religion. They are. I've lived in England 20 years. You don't see a Union Jack unless you're outside Buckingham Palace. And you go here and it's just everywhere shoved down your throat. They couldn't want to feel more British, and no one over there thinks that those people are British. Unless you're standing outside Ibrox at a particular time on a Saturday afternoon in Glasgow. You know, it's so strange, and we're miles and years and decades, generations away from that. But chip away little by little. This would be a massive step forward if you can get the numbers bigger within.
I mean, we are changing. The next census is going to show a big change in terms of the ethnic makeup of Northern Ireland.
Sure, and that's massive, and that will be crucial.
You know, that will shock a lot of people, and it will hopefully change attitudes about the kind of place we are, I suppose, you know.
I hope you're right. And what you're saying there about the rise of this other identity that, you know.
Does that give you a sense of hope?
Yeah, definitely, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up, as much as I'm very well aware of my mates, of officially if we have to fill out a form and you have to gun to your head what religion are you, I know what they are, but for the most part we're not very strongly one way or the other, and we'd probably fall into that camp you're talking about, and that voice is getting louder, and that's only a good thing for this part of the world.
Absolutely. And I suppose Oliver?
Well, no, I am optimistic. I think just because it's in my genetic makeup to be optimistic, and a big part of it is I think that we're having much more open and honest conversations now than we ever have, and the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. But
they're not having these conversations in Parliament.
They're not, no, but it's happening. It's happening on the street, and you're saying, you know, this might be years and years and generations away, but like our hand might be forced if Scotland votes to leave, and then the whole makeup of the union will completely shift. And I was hopeful in the last election that there would be a move away from the polls, and the surge in alliance was hopeful for me until I realised that, well, actually, that it's really the moderates just rallied around one horse. But as you said, I think that forces the conversation now that a lot of the terms of the Good Friday Agreement are no longer fit for purpose, because it's not about two communities, it's about three.
Yeah.
And the good news is, though, that I was out with Chelsea Clinton last night getting drunk, and we rewrote the Good Friday Agreement. But
you rewrote it?
Yeah, but now I just can remember it. So. But I remember it was about the presence of three different communities rather than two.
Okay, that's interesting. And did she accept?
She doesn't remember it either.
No.
Since she appeared at the end of Derry Girls, she's
suddenly she's suddenly got a whole new awareness of what's going on here as well.
Exactly.
But I think there's more of a want.
Can I just quickly ask, what does she drink? What's her favourite drink?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, come on! Like, is she beer? Is she cocktails?
I'm not going to tell you.
A gentleman never tells. Fair play.
She's a private person. But I think I'm optimistic, because I think there's more of a conversation around people wanting to be better rather than being right. and sort of doubling down on like I'll be right even though it's not in my best interest. It's just it's sort of the ego of proving somebody wrong. And I think we're starting to see that. I think we're starting to see what we actually have here. It's geographically beautiful. The people are really nice to everybody else apart from each other. And if global warming keeps going, this will be the next Ibiza. So.
Except certain parts of East Belfast will be underwater, but that's, May, I was just going to ask you, you mentioned about the cost of segregation.
Yes.
And I suppose the question is, how long can you afford to have
that's a big question. And with the new bill going through now and different things happening up with Stormont, if we can get Stormont back, that'll have to change because we can't afford it.
No.
We can't afford to waste $1 billion a year on segregated education. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody should go to an integrated school, but there's got to be a better way to do it.
We must be able to come up with an education system that represents everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for that little discussion. And can we have a bit of house lights? And everyone could stick their hands up if they have any questions. Don't be shy. Yes, I see the lady there. There's two ladies there. Have we got sorry, I'm making the mic do the work there.
Do you want to just shout it out in the interest of time and we can repeat it?
You shout it out to me and I'll...
Okay, well, I have kind of a comment to make and then a question really for...
Okay, remember we're under time here, so...
May, I just absolutely adore, and I just think thank you so much for everything that you have done in terms of bringing forward integrated education in Northern Ireland. We have absolutely needed it, and your steadfast work on this has been absolutely phenomenal, and for that,
Thank you.
To ask you, do you think that your optimism has come from being through an integrated system? Is that why you look very favourably on Northern Ireland and that you're able to go out to your American friends and be able to...
It's probably part of it. I've never actually sort of looked back and tried to dissect where that comes from. I think a big part of it is my family. A big part of it is I like the idea of smothering something with love and seeing the impact that has rather than reacting with anger. And I think the more that I've travelled with doing book signings all over the world, I've yet to meet anybody who wants to be an asshole. All people... I think there's a lot of people whose stories are just misunderstood, who feel left behind, and who get angry about that. But they don't actually want to set out to be an asshole. And I think when you scratch deep enough, all people just want the same things, really. And it's really simple, purpose, dignity, health, community. And those shouldn't be hard to deliver.
Thank you. Yes, just up at the top there. Hello.
Hi, my son attends an integrated secondary school. He's going into third year next year. But when I was applying for his place, what really struck me was that it still has the 40-40-20 ratio, 40 Catholic, 40 Protestant and 20 other. I would come under the other camp. I grew up in the Loyalist housing estate, married to a Quaker, so I am definitely other. My children are being brought up other. But the school I was applying for, they were oversubscribed for Catholic, they were oversubscribed for other. So when I was putting my form in, I put my son down as other, and the principal came over and says, "What are you thinking? Put down Protestant, if you want to get him in." So I did, and it grates me to this day that he is down in that school as being under the Protestant, so I could get him in. So I suppose you guys have influence, and that's happening now. Why aren't our schools now changing that they are 30-30-30? That whenever somebody's filling out the form, there are loads of other. And I suppose I'm asking you guys, can you do something about it sooner rather than later?
May, did you want to say anything on that? Or?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's Section 75, which came out of the Good Friday Agreement, and the department still adheres to that. Mm-hmm. That's part of their format. But that will change. That will change, hopefully, under this new act that's gone through, when Kelly Armstrong put it through this just recently. That will change, and I agree with you. There should not be that set number. If you want to go to an integrated school, you should be able to go. But this year alone, we've turned away about 1,500 children because we can't place them, because we have nowhere for them. So we're moving in the right direction, but unfortunately we're still tied in with the Good Friday Agreement. And interesting enough, the Good Friday Agreement, there's 5 things in the Good Friday Agreement were never, ever fulfilled, and they all belong to community. That's interesting.
Really? Yeah. Says it all. Anyone else? Hands up. Just in front there.
Thank you. So I work for Into Film. We've just recently been, well, in the past couple of years, been working on a resource called Story Builder. We just wanted to know what your thoughts were on how important it is for young people to tell their own stories, particularly within this frame.
Jamie,
Yeah, it's massive, and like, you know, you can't when you can't rely on sort of sound influence from government or anything. Where are you looking for your inspiration? Where are you looking for new voices? Where are you looking for ways and means of the right way to think from somewhere like this? Film's a great way, you know. Like Belfast maybe did a small, you know, because it did so well worldwide, and I feel like the sort of open message in that was very positive, and I think anything that can sort of add to that, any way of seeing things through a different light in a way that people understand. It's much more impactful for people to see things through like a film or, you know, a podcast, or hear it that way these days with the younger generation than it is to get through to them any other way. We've tried it the other ways, it doesn't work, so I'm well behind that, yeah.
But also telling their own story, realising that's relevant.
Yes, and there's people who want to listen to it, need to listen to it.
Thank you. Yes. We've got 2 in the same sort of row there, so you go first, and then gentleman behind you. All right.
I just wanted to know, Oliver and Jamie, like, do you think your views would be different if you'd stayed in Northern Ireland? Because you obviously both been away for a considerable amount of time.
Well, I think my views would have been different because there was no way I was going to stay. So if I had stayed, it would have been because my views were different. And I think really a big part of this, Our Place in Space Festival, is that when I was trying to explain the Northern Irish history of conflict to well-educated people in the USA who had no idea, I realized that nobody really cared. And a lot of the language that I was using, I recognized was similar to the way that astronauts talk about looking at Earth from a distance, the overview effect, and you know, with time and distance comes perspective. And a big part of that project is looking at our planet. The furthest we've ever been from Earth is the Moon, and that's 250,000 miles away. And at the scale of this project, that's one step. But our solar system at that scale is 10 kilometers long. So when even you get to Mars or Jupiter and you look back and you can't even see Earth, it was like, are these divisions important? And I got a little tiny snippet of a view of that by trying to explain here across an ocean.
Thank you. So you next.
Got the mic, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
People
aren't making the mic.
People up the back so they can hear you.
Yes. Hello, is that better? I teach in one of the schools that's going to be integrated in September, and I'm so excited. I think it'll be amazing for our kids, especially just with some of the kind of hidden, entrenched views that are there to be kind of picked apart. My big worry would be that integration and the things that will bring will always kind of play second fiddle to the more established metrics for whether a school is seen as good or so I mean, you know, what are your GCSE results? How many kids are going to university? I guess the question is, how do we move past that sense of a school being a good school? You know, because there's no league table for mutual respect or kindness or understanding. That's
Collective amnesia?
If you say it enough, people will start to...
People will forget.
Well, I mean, I think there are ways that we can measure those things, but I think it's persuading the Department of Education or whoever it might be that those things are important, and as a society saying they're important. I mean, we really do like measure how many people are of a certain kind in a certain place at a certain time, or how they engage with public funding and all that sort of stuff. So it's not beyond people to measure that and to see it as a metric of success, but I suppose that's maybe a society thing more than anything else? Do we want that?
Where is the school, if you don't mind me asking?
Glengormley High School. So it'll be
because
integrated
September.
college, Glengormley in September.
Nice one. Will. Just to wish you luck next year.
Cheers.
Hope it was well.
Hi, I'd be glad to hear. Don't have a question, but I would just like to comment. So, like yourself, Hugh, I went to Lygon College. I am now vice principal of an integrated primary school very close by. And I would just like to say to all of you that every single day I see the benefits of integrated education on a very personal level and on a very day-to-day level, and that can never ever be underestimated. And I think from just sitting here today listening to a few things you've said, you know, Jimmy, you said chipping away. That to me is the most important thing that we need to keep doing. We just need to keep chipping away, and please, please, for those who are not in the integrated sector, please believe me that every single day those who are there are making a difference to the children that we teach every single day. And we need to just keep going, and we need to keep our positivity, and we need to keep that kind of our being out there and letting people see how much we do every day. Yeah. So thank you for every single thing that all of you have done, and I know that's a very personal comment, but I just couldn't sit here today and not say it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, the positivity, and you were asking why I'm an optimist. It's like life's just so much more fun when you're an optimist, for one thing.
That's true.
We've got one more. Did you want to go? Yeah, one, maybe two. We've maybe got two. We've got time for two. I'm conscious that there's a play on in here tonight. So.
Sorry, they can do it around us.
Okay. We could do Stones in His Pocket. No, you don't want to see that. So, yes, go ahead there. Yep.
I just want to know what you thought that we could do sort of at the coalface. So I'm a teacher in an integrated school in Bangor. I know there's a few of my colleagues here. And so we work really hard to develop children's understanding of other religions. I used to work, when I started my teaching career in England, and in England it's totally different. You teach the 6 major world religions, and it is Christians believe, it is Muslims believe. Over here we are stuck within the confines of statutory RE curriculum that is Christianity based, and we all want change, but as you said before, whenever it's in the system, like what can we do as practitioners to champion that change?
Break the rules?
Well, somebody at some stage is going to have to break the rules, I suppose, but I mean, I suppose through unions maybe, or...
Well, I would never dream of breaking the rules.
No, well, how do you go about doing it? Well, I mean, how do you lobby government? How do you put that pressure on people to change that sort of thing?
You just go and knock the door and don't move till you get what you want.
There you go. That's the best advice you can probably have.
Yeah. I remember years ago I was dealing with Barbara de Bruin. She was the Minister of Health then, and I was looking money for early years on the Shankill, and she said to me, "I'm sorry, May, but you're counting your chickens before they're hatched." I said, "Really, I tell you, it's not over to the fat lady's things, and I haven't learned the words yet." And we got our money 4 weeks later.
And did you get the money?
Yeah, 4 weeks later.
Yes. All right, one more question. Yep, up the top there.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take two because we have two more. Sorry, Jimmy, we've got time. You go first then.
So I am one of the newly elected MLAs for the Alliance Party. It'll come as no surprise. I'm a proponent of integrated education, and one of the questions that's regularly put to me is, do I feel shared education has been helpful to the movement? And I wonder if anybody on the panel could say their opinion on that.
May, do you want to take?
Well, I was on the shared education panel for over 3 years, and a lot of money was poured into it from the three American and that British and that. It never went anywhere because it was really good schools taking it, and I don't disadvantage. They were taking advantage of the money and tuning up with a school that was less advantaged, and it wasn't working. It just simply wasn't working, and that's why it finished. There was an enormous amount of money put into shared education, but I'm all for it. I mean, I have no problem with shared education. If it's more than an hour or an afternoon, you can't learn that way. You have to sit side by side and go out into the playground and have a good row and come back in and then get to know one another better. You just can't do it. You just can't do it going on the bus and back.
Last question's up there.
Hi, my name's Lisa, this is Aoife. We're two teachers from what is now officially the biggest school in Northern Ireland. We're in Bangor. My question would be, for a school like ours, which is a huge school but has no integrated status and yet has children from all over the world, a number of Ukrainian students with us and things like that at the moment, how do we integrate that ethos into a school like that that'll never get integrated status because of its geographical location?
What does the IAF advise for schools?
We're on the Shankill. I mean, I live on the Shankill, as you know, and we have 10 primary schools. I doubt if we'll ever have an integrated school on the Shankill. But on the periphery of both of them, there's Malone and there's Hazelwood, and they're growing and growing and growing. Now, eventually the department will have to take that on board because Hazelwood can't take any more. The primary school's full. Malone's bursting at the seams. It has to be taken on board somewhere. Somebody has to do something about that. Now, what to do about it, I have no idea, but they have to do it because that's the way people are thinking now. People are moving towards that, and that's good.
And maybe the system will change in terms of how change happens and what integrated means. And we were talking about segregated schools and integrated schools and all that sort of sense.
Well, we hope the new bill will push that forward.
Yeah. And maybe those lines will blur, maybe as well. So, right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm conscious that the show must go on later on tonight, probably about 7:30. So I just wanted to say that the Welsh philosopher said to be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing. So I wanted to say thank you to the Nerve Centre, to the Lyric Theatre, for hosting us today. Thank you very much, Oliver, for this whole smorgasbord of our place and space that you've put together. Thank you so much, Jamie, for being here today. And May, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you to all of you as well for coming along today.